Hey y'all, so here I am again with some more ideas. Alright, so this necklace, I've actually done it here in two different base colors for the background. And what this is basically my sea glass inspired necklace, and the beads themselves are not sea glass. I seriously doubt you'll ever find perfectly round beads with the sea glass finish. These are the glass crystal beads with the matte finish on it to make it looks like sea glass. Primary technique that we're going to be learning in this video is actually right here. It's where the thread meets either your jump ring that you may use, or you may just be connecting directly to the chain to minimize its profile as much as possible, so you don't really even notice that you are visually seeing the thread right there. And you'll notice that in terms of the bead strands themselves, there are 5 strands but only 2 patterns, and I'll be going over the pattern selection as well. I want to start with the tools that we'll be needing. You'll be needing your scissors, you'll be needing a number 10 beading thread. You'll definitely be needing your pliers, your bent nose and your straight nose, and your handy ruler. And the biggest tool you'll be wanting to use is your necklace tray. So these are the supplies we're going to be needing. We're going to need 18 of the 10mm crystal glass beads with the matte finish, 15 of the 8mm beads, 30 of the 6mm beads, 44 of the 4mm beads. We're going to need 11 O seed beads, and it's whatever color you choose. Today we're actually going to be using the silver lined dark emerald, and there's going to be approximately 276 of these beads used in this necklace. We're also going to need our waxed beading thread, or whatever beading thread you prefer to use. I prefer the thread as opposed to nylon because the necklace drapes better with it. We're also going to need 2 cap beads for the ends where our beads come together, 2 pieces of chain approximately 7 inches long, a lobster claw, and 2 jump rings. The first thing we're going to be doing is actually assembling our chain section here. And that's not including those 2 bits just yet. It's just your basics on assembling chains. You're going to take your jump rings, and I always use my curved nose pliers for this part, holding it in my left hand, opening that up, placing my ring, my chain end onto the jump ring. And I'm going to go ahead and put on my lobster claw with this particular end of the chain as well. And then you're just going to close it. And basically rinse and repeat with the other end. And these are the connecting ends of the chain. The opposite end of the chain that's not getting the jump rings is where you're going to be attaching your bead threads. Okay, so I'm back, and this is what I've done. I've gone ahead and I've lined up all the beads that we're going to be using for each of our repeat strands. So these are the 4mm beads that are going to be on 2 repeat strands. So it's 13 of the 11 O seed beads, and then I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 of the 4mm beads, with 3 of the 11 O seed beads in between each one of those, and ending again with another 13 11 O seed beads. Then for this strand is going to repeat twice, so there'll be 2 of them. Our other strand that we're going to have 3 of will be 13 of the 11 O seed beads, and then it's going to be an alternating of the 10mm bead, an 11/0C bead, the 6mm bead, 11/0C bead, the 8mm bead, 11/0C bead, the 6mm bead, 11/0C bead, and then again back to the 10mm bead. And the sequence will start and end with the 10mm bead. So there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the 10mm beads, and the other smaller beads repeating in between them. So you could see how that sequence is going to work out. What I've done is I've gone ahead and I've threaded a length of thread onto my needle. The thread length is just going to depend on you and how often you're going to want to rethread, and I would recommend trying to get enough thread to do 2 strands at a time and then rethread, because if you get too much on a single length of thread, there's a probability that if you have breakage, you're going to, lose a lot. You want to minimize that. So I would not do all of this on a single length of thread. I would break it up. When you tie your knot and it's just an overhand knot, I would offset it. When you go to find the center, I would offset just about 1/4 of an inch to get that knot away from this end right here, because this is where you're going to start by looping it through the end of your chain before you start your beading. That way this knot isn't going to be seen. All right, so now we're going to actually start connecting our thread to our chain link. And one thing you want to make sure is that where you're connecting your thread to your chain link, you see that there's this little gap here in the chain link, and you want to make sure that that is against the next bit of chain, because that's not going to come through. And where you're connecting your thread onto your link is where there's no gap, because otherwise your thread's just going to fall through. So what we're doing is, since I've doubled my thread onto my needle, I'm pulling everything through, and I'm going back through the doubling of the thread to pull this on. And what I'm trying to do here is to make sure my knot is not here. It's not seen here. And with it down this far onto my thread, the point is that it gets embedded in the beads and you don't actually see that knot. So that is an important thing with this technique, is that you're not going to see the knot. It's not going to be visible. So now I'm just going to pick up my first end cap and let it fall all the way up against my chain link, and I'm just going to start beading my thread. So now we have our first strand of beads threaded, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to add on my second cap bead, end cap, and now we're going to be connecting to our other section of chain, and again making sure that this open part of the link is facing away from where you're connecting onto the link itself. And what you're going to do this time is, once you've pulled your thread all the way up through, you're going to want to hold it a little tight, because what you're going to want to do is create a bit of a half hitch knot here, and still holding it tight so the half hitch knot actually completes. And that's actually what you're really wanting to do here, is doing a double half hitch. So once you've completed your first half hitch, you're going to complete a second. So you have your double half hitch knot, making it as secure as possible to that length of the chain. And you're going to go back down through your end cap bead. And the challenge here is, when you come back through, that you not pick up any of the beads from the strand that's already there. And you're going to Try to not overlap your thread. Pull that through and hold it tight. It's important that you keep some tension on this so it doesn't get loose at this end. So even though you've got that double half hitch knot on there, it is only as secure as the tension that you keep on the thread. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pick up all the remaining beads for our next section of our necklace. Okay, so now we have our second strand of beads on here, and now we're going to go back up through the first cap bead that we started with, and you'll see that we've got a little bit of slack going on here, and that's okay because we want that slack for the moment, but here in a little bit we're going to actually tighten that up. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be pushing our beads back through to tighten up on our slack. And you'll remember that on this end we've got the double half hitch knots. But again, those double half hitch knots still have the ability to pull some of the slack out. So now we've actually managed to get the slack out of our strands, and so we're tight up into our caps on both ends. And now what we're wanting to do with the end that we started at, again, we're going to want to do, we want to go through our link in the chain, making sure that I keep hitting the open part of the link. Sorry. What I want to do is I want to go through the link in the chain with our double half hitch knot, so that's going through it once. This is going through it the second time, and this time what I want to do is I actually want to do 1 half hitch knot around both threads at the bottom of the link, because that's going to help give a bit more stability at this end. And once I've got that done, I'm coming back down through my cap bead, again doing my best to avoid any of the beads from the prior strands, and pulling that tight. So from here, now that I've got the first 2 strands on, I'm going to do another strand of this segment of beads, and I'll repeat this strand twice more, and then we'll come back and I'll show you how to finish this one off. Okay, so here we are. We have all of our strands attached to the necklace, the 3 strands with the larger beads and the 2 strands with the smaller beads. And what I've done here is I've already done my double half hitch knot, and I've also done the half hitch knot around all the threads to make them a bit stronger for the connection. This time, when I'm going down into the end cap, this time I'm purposely actually trying to catch beads when I go through, whereas all the prior times I was keeping my needle as close to the inner part of the top portion of the cap to avoid catching any of the other strands of beads. this time, since we are finishing, we're wanting to capture beads. And I'm trying to target one of these strands. And you're just going to have to feel around and watch where your needle starts poking through at. So you see how the needle is coming out of the seed beads right there? So I have actually been able to capture this particular strand. And what I'm going to do now is hold my thread in a position to where as I pull it through the end cap, I'm trying not to do what I just did, wrap it around the rest of the necklace. I'm trying to just get it to come through the end cap and into my bead strand. And I was successful. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue to go down this strand of beads, going back through all of the beads, coming out below the first of the largest beads, and I'm going to tie a knot, because what I'm doing is I'm prepping to finish off this necklace. And I did the same method when I transitioned to a new strand of thread. So for my first strand of thread, I was able to do 3 of these, and then I had to switch to another strand of thread to complete the last 2 bead strands. And when I finished the first one, I did capture beads coming through the end, and as I came down the strand, I would actually do periodic knots. And what this does is this is how you finish off, because we're going to be embedding our thread into our strand of beads. But for this particular strand, I'm actually adding a bit more strength to it. And that's actually a good thing for our whole project, is to actually add a bit more strength to a few of the strands. That way, in the event the necklace ever breaks, hopefully it'll break on one of the strands that you've added the extra strength to, and you won't have beads going all over the place. And even if it breaks one of the other strands, it's still not going to be horrible, because you'll have some of them have got this extra strength in it. So what I'm doing is every so often I'm coming up out of the beads and tying a knot. And that knot actually won't stop the larger beads, but it should stop the seed beads from unraveling. And now I'm just going to be finishing off by embedding my tail through a few more beads before trimming it, and then we will be finished. And now we're done. So it's always important that as you're trimming your thread, you do want to get as close as possible, but you want to use gravity. You want to pull your thread taut, get as close as possible to the bead, and just trim it off. And what that'll do is it'll pull the remains of that thread end back into the beads, and you won't actually see it. What this shows you is you can use a bright, any color of the 11 seed beads you want to make it personal to you. And I hope you enjoy this project, and we'll see you next time. Bye.